Hello everybody, my name's Novi and welcome back to the channel. A couple weeks back, the WWE ID system was announced to mixed reactions. Some people were excited about what it may mean for indie wrestlers, and others, like myself, were a whole lot more skeptical. Truth is though, we don't necessarily know exactly what that's gonna be just yet, so it's hard to make some big grand statement about it. What we do know, however, is that it means the WWE are getting ahead of AEW when it comes to talent development again. Of course, they've existed a whole lot longer and have had more time to get the NXT system that they currently operate with in order, as well as the WWE NIL pipeline that they take full advantage of now. But that doesn't mean that AEW, just over 5 years in, shouldn't be trying to develop their own pathway. Not just to keep up, but because the system that they've used for getting new talent into the company just doesn't work anymore. That's due to the fact that the landscape of wrestling has consistently changed over the years, in large part due to their existence. So given that, AEW has to adapt, grow, and evolve, which for me means putting together some kind of talent development system. What does that look like? Well, I have my ideas and we'll get into them today. But before we do, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel because no matter what, we're always talking graps. So before we look at some solutions, let's look at the way AEW currently recruits talent. When they were first getting off the ground, they had their stars in the Elite, Cody, Jericho, and Mox. That was then supplemented by a lot of well-known indie wrestlers, a lot of them very established. Not long after that, they started to get WWE names to come over after they were released, or their deal simply came up, and it was that, on top of still signing some big-name independent wrestlers, that kept them feeling fresh consistently talent-wise. There was just new name after new name, big star after big star coming over very regularly for a long time there. It was great, and they had built this roster up into something truly special through these strategies. Problem is, like I said in the intro, the landscape of wrestling was changing around them. The WWE, thought to be run forever by a group destined to drive them into the ground, was taken over by a whole lot more competent regime. That regime then quickly got all the water out of this sinking ship and started to rebuild their brand, ultimately leading us to where we are right now, where, whether it's true or not, the WWE is widely considered to be good again. Not just that either, they're also, again, whether it's true or not, widely considered to be the babyface brand, which then takes us to the main issue. With these two things being the case, people are less likely to jump from WWE over to AEW. And on top of that, a lot of indie wrestlers are more likely to go to the WWE, meaning AEW's talent recruitment strategy has gone up in flames just like that. Subsequently, they've kind of just sat back and watched as things happened around them, just kind of waiting or hoping for something to change. But as anyone would know, that's not how you handle a problem. So now that we've got the background established, how do they solve said problem? Well, maybe they could convince indie wrestlers that signing to AEW would lead to better things for them. That wouldn't be a bad idea, but it would take a lot of effort on the booking side of things, and I just don't trust AEW to do that. Here's the thing though, say that they could do that, and also say that this isn't some crazy, ludicrous idea like we all know it is. What indie wrestlers should they even try to get? Because at the end of the day, the independent scene just isn't what it used to be. The way it currently operates is never going to produce a Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson type talent anymore. It's for a lot of reasons, many of which I cover in my recent video, The Future of Pro Wrestling Scares Me. So if you're really looking for an in-depth discussion on that, you can for sure find it there. But yeah, it's just not gonna happen these days. Now, this isn't to say that there's nobody out there right now. I could rattle off a good chunk of guys that I would keep my eye on for the future. But even still though, none of those names would be even close to the caliber of the three that I mentioned. And the three that I mentioned are the kind of wrestlers who draw money, who become big stars. That era that they came up in was simply the best developmental system there ever was, point blank period. And Trevor Dame excellently describes why by saying, young talent working every weekend with few to no restrictions or instructions for a handful of years before they get plucked. I would kill to have that system back, like many others would. It gave us some of the best wrestlers of all time. The game has simply changed though, and now the strategy has to change with it. So now that we firmly established that the changing indie wrestlers' mind solution wouldn't work, shocker, and that the indies suck, what's left? Well, we have to look at the proven ways of recruiting talent. And to me, the best of any of those is the college recruitment strategy. Now look, I saw the reactions to this when it was put out there the other week. There are a lot of AEW fans that are against this, and I really don't understand why. Well, I do. It's because that section of AEW fans think that if they do anything WWE has ever done, it's a bad thing. But to that point, it has to be said, this concept, this pathway, wasn't a WWE creation. Where do you think Stan Hansen, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kenta Kobashi, and Kenny Omega all came from? They weren't just scooped up off the street, or they somehow found their way to a wrestling school after getting a biology degree. They were all athletes, trained and taught to be pro wrestlers, a tale as old as this game has been around. That's what this sport was built on, and what it's continued to be built up with. So why shouldn't AEW get in on that action? Here's the thing though, I know what people are thinking when I say that sort of thing. Performance Center. It's fair, I don't blame anyone for feeling that way. It's been the only system in town for quite a while. But AEW doesn't have to have that at all. In fact, I don't think they should. I'd much rather they take the way of old and morph it, shape it to fit wrestling's current landscape. The system that made Joe, Punk, and Danielson can be crafted. I think it can. But AEW can't do it alone. They're gonna need some help, which is why I would call on their partner promotions to help fill out this cycle. When you're working with promotions on the level of CMLL, New Japan, Stardom, and even the next tier of Rev Pro and DDT, you have to take full advantage of that. I know for a fact that at least CMLL and New Japan are scouting college athletes in their respective countries too, so it's not like them training AEW's college athletes would be foreign to them. However, I don't think that it's fair to send these D2 and 3 athletes from NC State or something like that over to one of these promotions that have their own goals in mind to learn how to take back bumps. So what I'd also add into this process is an AEW wrestling school program. There has to be a place in between an excursion to these other promotions and the starting point. And I think this would be it. They could easily partner with schools around the US. Creative Pro comes to mind because a lot of AEW's wrestlers come from there. But for me personally, I would like AEW to make and establish their own schools or dojos. AEW has one of the best rosters of all time, filled with veterans of the sport that know how to do this. I mean, just for one example, you have Katsuyori Shibata on your roster. He ran a dojo himself. Then for the other guys, you can absolutely pay them a little bit extra money to go teach a class or two on the weekend, or just work with some of the guys throughout the week. Like, you're telling me that you couldn't pay Samoa Joe a couple $1,000s to go train some classes for a month? I don't think that's impossible. And just this small thing would give you a look on which of these college athletes look promising and which ones don't very fast. On top of that too, you can have some of these independent wrestlers that you have your eye on come train for a little bit, so you can also determine the same thing with them. So then once you have guys that you actually think are somewhat good to send to your partner promotions, you tell them, pack your bags, you're going to CMLL, you're going to Stardom for 6 to 12 months to work undercard tags or just dark matches. And it's there where they can really learn the basics of working in front of a crowd and just wrestling as a whole. Then judging off how that goes case by case, you bring them back and you figure out what to do with them from there. What do you actually do with them though? I should explain. I think that Ring of Honor should really become AEW's developmental brand. Obviously, it's a little hard without reworking the name. I think there is some merit in that. ROH does bring along some lofty expectations from some fans. It's a real thing, but in my opinion, who cares? Screw it. It's not like anyone is watching nowadays, if we're being honest with ourselves. And at least turning it into a developmental brand makes it something unique and special for people to actually want to tune into. Like, you're telling me there's not room for a little 1-hour wrestling show focused on developmental projects? People like watching talents learn and grow. It establishes connections between the viewers and those wrestlers that they're watching on their screen, which is something we've seen with NXT forever. And at its core, this would serve as a place for talents to just grow in front of an audience without the pressure of being on main AEW Dynamite. And it's why it'd be the final stage of my proposed AEW developmental process. Now, with that being said though, I do want to take it step by step and really nail down what my idea actually is for this process, just so nothing gets confused. Starting at 1, college athletes are scouted and recruited coming out of school. 2, those athletes go to train at AEW sponsored or AEW owned wrestling schools led by their top veterans. This step would also include independent wrestlers, just as all the steps after this would, just, to be clear. 3, the ones that show potential from all that get sent to one of AEW's partner promotions. There, they can work in the undercards and dark matches and grow and evolve as a wrestler, find their place in this wrestling world. 4, given they've taken a step up and have shown continuous improvement at the place they go to, they return to AEW to work Ring of Honor, the new developmental brand. Then finally 5, if they nail all that, if they are still around, if they've survived all these trials and tribulations, they get moved up to AEW's main roster, where then they can be a new face that people recognize, people have watched on the developmental brand, and can follow as they make their way in AEW. That right there is simple, easy, and streamlined in all the best ways. One thing I do want to make clear before we end this video though, is that I'm not sitting here telling you that this system, this proposed path, would work for absolutely everyone. It won't. There will be plenty of these college athletes, plenty of these indie wrestlers who AEW just decide not to keep on. And at the end of the day, that's the game. That's how sports work. And even still, if this system produces maybe 5 wrestlers a year even, it might be a crazy low number, but a decent amount of wrestlers per year, it's still absolutely worth it. Not just because it is a system in place that they have that pathway, but because of the few people that it does work for. You have no idea the level of talent that one of these athletes might turn into if they're just given some direction. The college kids aren't meatheads who can't think like a lot of people seem to think. It is very possible to mold them into fantastic professional wrestlers. You have to actually try with it though, dedicate resources and time. And with this new TV deal, this far into its existence, AEW can do it. And they absolutely should. With that all said, that's going to do it for the video, everybody. Make sure to leave a like on this video and make sure to comment your thoughts down below on the AEW talent development system, if my way is any good, if you maybe have an idea of your own. Drop anything. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for new videos just like these every single Saturday, where we're always talking graps. I hope you all enjoyed the video. It's been Novi. Much love to you all. Peace.